Hi everyone, this is Jon McNaughton, and today I'm drawing a picture of George W. Bush. And for some reason, I haven't ever drawn a picture of George W. Bush. I've wanted to. He's kind of the president that got me started on doing political artwork. So I've got a lot of feelings and thoughts about GW, and I'm going to kind of share those with you while I'm sketching. I speeded this up about 2.5 times the normal speed that I draw, so it took me about a half hour to draw this picture. And, it's just something I'm doing in my sketchbook. It's relaxing. I like to do it. And I had this amazing, just crazy quote from GW from a couple weeks ago, and I just couldn't help but want to sketch this and include the quote. So you'll see that at the end. So as far as GW, I voted for him in both elections. And, it was, I think it might have, I don't remember. I think I voted, I think that was the first time I can't remember my first time I voted. Maybe it was Bush. I can't remember. I don't remember the election before that, who ran against Clinton. But anyway, so he might have been the first time I'd ever voted and got involved in politics was when Bush was president. And, I liked Bush. He's he's kind of a little bit of a bumbling guy, a little awkward, but he seemed like a pretty genuine guy. Dick Cheney, he seemed a lot more political, more kind of like he was the brains behind what they were doing. But towards when 9/11 happened, and George Bush GW was very adamant about going after the terrorists, and they passed the Patriot Act and all that good stuff. I was like, wow, I can't believe this is all happening. I don't know what to think about this, and it seemed like the right thing to do to go after the terrorists. And they told us that they were, they had a stockpile of biochemical weapons of mass destruction, and they had to go after Saddam Hussein, even though the terrorists weren't coming out of Iraq. They were in Afghanistan and other places. Of course, the Saudis were the ones who actually were involved in hijacking the planes and everything. So it just seemed a little strange to me. But I was still pretty supportive of GW until the end of his presidency. They had that big bailout. I think it was like something like $600 billion or close to it that GW gave to certain companies because, in his words, they were too big to fail. And at that point, I was pretty disenchanted with GW and was wondering, what is going on here? This does not sound like a conservative president. And then I started digging into it and started wondering about the Patriot Act. That seemed pretty far-reaching. They said that we needed to have it to protect ourselves, and yet, I saw that it didn't look like it was being used in that regard. So I started to really take a look at politics as an artist a lot more than I had before. And it was right after, it was the election of 2008, that summer, when John McCain and Barack Obama were facing off to each other, that I really started to look at myself as moving in the direction of doing political artwork. I did my first painting, One Nation Under God, then. And so Bush, he moves on, and, a lot of people were really hard on Bush, towards the end of his presidency. I mean, he didn't get any breaks from the press, but he was kind of timid, and just sort of laid over and let the press just walk all over him. And that's one of the reasons why Trump was so refreshing when he came in. The way he handled the press, it was like, fight or die. stand up for what you believe in. So that kind of was an influence on me. But I cannot compare GW to Trump in any way at all. I mean, now that I've been involved with keeping my eye on conservatism and politics and what's going on in the country, I mean, talk about two completely different politicians. We know that GW hates Trump for a lot of reasons, one of which was the way he demolished Jeb Bush during the primaries in 2016. That was crazy, the way he did that. And so I think there might be a family vendetta. But, as I've watched GW over the years, the way that he's cozied up with the Clintons and the Obamas, something's not right. And, recently the way he's really attacked Trump, he is not the guy that I thought he was. And I've become almost disgusted by GW and just, he comes across as this kindly gentleman, older man that just, didn't quite have it together, but, something wasn't right. And I don't think that he is what we thought he was. So I know those are kind of general observations. I don't want to dive into any conspiracy theories or anything like that, but I just am very disappointed in GW, and I feel like it was an unjust war that got us over in Iraq. My personal belief was that the reason that we went to war was because Saddam Hussein was threatening the petrodollar, the balance over there that pretty much props up our U.S. dollar. He was talking about going over using the yuan and working with China, and they just couldn't have that. But it's dirty. There's a lot of dirty stuff in politics. And so now that GW's been out of the limelight for 16, 17 years, he's grown old. He's about 75 now. And, he struggled during his presidency to sometimes say things right. And now that he's older, I'm sure it's even more difficult. So, this gentleman has the potential to really put his foot in it sometimes. So a couple weeks ago, he was doing some kind of a speaking engagement, was commenting on what was going on in Ukraine, and made probably one of the most infamous gaffes I think I've ever heard a politician make. Before I get to that, you can see I'm just filling in his clothing. I've already got most of his face done. These are just so fun for me to draw. They just kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? They just sort of leak out of my pencil. I don't have to think too hard. I'm just trying to capture the essence in my sketch of GW. And I like this expression he's got. There was a time when I could do a good GW impression, but I'm not even going to try it now. He just really stepped in it. And so maybe some of you have heard this and some of you haven't. I'm not sure. But one of the things I like to do when I do these sketches in my sketchbook is I'll write a famous quote next to the sketch that really kind of gives some historical context to what's happening. And the legacy of George W. Bush is kind of a little bit complex. I think most people will remember him for the way he handled 9/11, and we attacked Afghanistan, and definitely the Iraq War. Little side note, my cousin married a man who was a doctor in Iraq, and he was the one that did the physical on Saddam Hussein after they found him. He'd been in hiding in some kind of a hole in the ground, and the U.S. troops found him, and he had to go get to the doctor and get a physical before he was handed over to the Iraqi people. And my cousin-in-law, I guess you could say, said that it was very pitiful, to see that man, who had been such a dictator, and now he was just the least of the least. Okay, so here I'm writing in the words that says, the decision of one man to launch a wholly unjustified and brutal invasion of Iraq. I mean Ukraine. Talk about a Freudian slip. So he was referring to Putin, of course, but instead he referenced himself. That's the insanity of it all. So there's the finished drawing. I'll be putting it up here on my website today for sale. I'm doing a small limited edition. I hope you like it. And this is my one and only sketch of George W. Bush.